Welcome to CLO Symposium, and my name is Helen Rossiter. I am the Senior Talent Development Specialist at West Marine, and I'm here to talk to you about how we created a culture of personal development at West Marine. First off, who's West Marine? Well, we are a nationwide retailer, so we have stores all across the states from coast to coast. So anywhere where there's a body of water, you will probably find a West Marine. So whether you're a sailor, whether you like to just go out on the water on a friend's boat or just enjoy the lake, we have everything for that lifestyle. So it's everything for your life on the water. So one of the things that we had to look at for our associates is how are we going to develop them in the ever-changing world with our economy where salaries aren't necessarily as enticing as they used to be because we can't keep up. So we had to figure out what else we could offer. And one of the things that we looked at was individual personal growth. So we'll talk a little bit about why personal growth, how we did that, which was what we call individual development plans, also known as IDPs, what the manager or supervisor's role in that is, how you tie in recognition into that, and I'm also going to go over a little pilot program that we did for our district manager development program where we used all of these tools and give you some tips to get started. So why personal growth? Personal growth is really about the person. It is associate driven. It is not driven by the top down. That way you get more buy-in because the associate is responsible for their own growth. It also provides them a way and some guidance to focus on their individual growth itself. So essentially, development plans might be the focus, but really succession plans are the result of this. Management needs to create that culture and make it okay for associates to talk about where they want to go, because sometimes it may not be within the company they're in, and that's okay. We need to prepare our associates for the future because we have a limited time, budget, and resources to help develop them, and so by being associate driven, they're able to guide their own path. And how we did that was individual development plans. We did a lot of research. We focused on strength finders. There's a few books I'll talk about in a moment that we also referred to. We went to other businesses, other retailers to see what they were doing. We saw a lot of great examples, but we needed to figure out how to tie it into our company. We knew that we wanted our company to be a little bit more tech savvy. So where we saw one organization do something similar to this, where they posted it on a back wall, we wanted ours to be available to all of the associates across the nation. And what we came up with was a 4-step plan for our IDPs. It's as easy as my dream, my strength, my plan, our growth. And what a my dream is we'll start with my dream. My dream is as easy as where do you want to be in the next 5 to 10 years? You as the associate, because it's yours. You drive this. So if you stop and you think for a moment what your dream might be and where you want to go, it's not necessarily to answer more emails. It's not necessarily to be able to hit a KPI for that week. A dream is more personal than that, but also bigger than that. And if you stop and think about what your dream is and what it might be, it's probably a pretty large goal. So when I went through this program myself, I had to go through all the steps. My dream was to create a creative outlet. Thus, H. Rossiter Designs was born. The next thing I had to do was think about my strength. And what is that one thing that everybody thinks of? What are you the go-to person for? Some people, it might be advice on graphics. Some people, it might be their ability to engage folks. Stop and think for a moment what your strength is, that go-to thing people come to you for. This one was a little harder for me. It took me a while. And what I realized is oftentimes other people are going to need some help too. So what we did is we pulled in our Caliper Assessments that we use at West Marine. We gave folks peer feedback forms that they could give out to help figure out what their strength was. We looked at performance feedbacks. We looked at some Franklin Covey work, some Keirsey personality work, and self-reflection. What I found for mine, I found mine through peer feedback, thinking outside the box. Apparently people came to me for outside of the box solutions, figuring out how to make things work given our certain restrictions that we might have with software, technology, hours, things of that nature. So mine was think outside the box. So now I have my dream, I have my strength. Now we got to figure out a plan to get there. Plan is as easy as thinking of it as milestones. Everybody knows the corporate ladder myth. It's not necessarily a straight path up. Sometimes you got to go sideways to go up, and your plan is no different. This is where we really relied on the technical aspect of the tools we went to look for to help us. And one of the things that, in fact, our tool Saba gives us is it gives us the ability to put goals in the system, and we're able to track to those goals. So if you think back, and my dream was that creative Rossiter designs, I had the ability to put goals into the system and track it. So now I have my plan, how I'm going to get there. I have my milestones that I had to hit. Now we tie it back into the company. All of this before now has been about the individual. That's why it's an individual development plan. Now it's about how do we tie that personal plan to the company's need. And that's where our growth comes in. Because now it's up to the managers and the supervisors to help that associate connect what they want to do with things within the company that we need to help them get to their dream. Mine came in the form of public speaking. So wanting to develop my career, wanting to develop my creative outlets, wanting to provide stability for my family led me to my first speaking engagement a year ago at Saba Insights. From that, we started to connect it to the company needs. So we were able to cascade goals down from my manager to myself. We were able to cascade the goals of my manager's boss all the way down. And some of those were finding tools to allow our associates to take charge of their careers. And so what we came up with through Saba Cloud is our own West Marine Cloud, because West Marine has to put their name on everything. So we started to pull in performance management. We started pulling in the learning workspaces that they provide, a learning catalog, and groups to allow for this growth. Individual development plans were announced on our homepage, and they were driven by key senior staff. We laid out the steps, all 4 steps, all the way through. So when they started their dream, they started with a worksheet. We allowed for conversations between the manager and the associate as they went through this, and we gave these 4 steps for each 4 steps of the program. What we found pretty quick was our managers and supervisors weren't necessarily ready. They weren't ready to have these conversations, and we needed to start to provide them tools and coaching on how to be a mentor for this type of plan. So essentially, we gave them some numbers for how much they could talk. So in a dream conversation, a manager really only talks about 5% of the time because it's all about the associate. Strength, they might need to talk a little bit more to help that associate figure out what their strengths are. Plan, that's where their skills really come in, because a manager has some skill sets and some competencies around making plans and milestones, so they're able to help the associate with that. So they talk about 40% of the time. And then during the growth conversation, that's really where the manager conversation kicks in. And they talk about 60% of the time for that one. So hosting an IDP discussion, we started to provide a lot of coaching cards around it. This is where we used help them grow or watch them go. And it was all about the associate being able to have the conversation with the manager, but the manager more hosting the conversation, not driving the conversation. Then we had to take it a little, bringing in the technology aspect of how does this happen in our tool. So the dream activity, we put it in like a course. Essentially, once the conversation happens, the associate starts this on their own, and it triggers a conversation one-on-one to the manager. Because remember, these are associate-driven. So this is the associate's way of telling the manager, I'm ready for the conversation. The tool also provides a lot of supporting resources for these conversations. It provides check-ins and one-on-one conversation trackers in the tool so that they can go back and see what was talked about, different activities that were decided upon, things like that. Because again, we wanted this to be a tech-savvy tool for folks. Then we also wanted to tie in recognition. Because it's one thing to state your dreams, it's another thing when you are publicly recognized for achieving them. This is where Saba really helped us. Recognition in this tool was unlike any others we've seen. So when we launched our IDP program, we launched it right before our biannual conference. People were already going through the IDP before they came to the conference. So when they arrived, we were able to assign little sticker badges to their name cards of where they were on the journey. And what this allowed for was conversations to happen during the conference. So folks would ask, what was your dream? What were some milestones that you had for your plan? And before we even got to the conference, we had a number of people already on the journey, very organically. What we also saw was that when we launched the recognition program, we didn't take out the ones that came out of the box. We just added our 4 individual ones, but we left the other ones there because we figured we would use them later. But we didn't promote it. It was just in the tool. And what we saw is as people were learning the recognition tools for IDP, they were discovering the other ones. So we saw team player badges being awarded. We saw action-oriented, coaching, dependable, creative. All of these people were finding in the tool all on their own and awarding other associates with it. So that leads me to our pilot program. This was just the overall 4 steps: my dream, my strength, my plan, our growth. We wanted to take this, though, and show how we could use it to drive a strategy within the company. And what we used was our district manager development program. We had to make some assumptions. There's no promise of being a district manager just because you went through this. It had to be inclusive, meaning even if you weren't able to come on site for the program, anybody could go through this. We had to have a committee so that they could review any predetermined criteria for the RVP's consideration, because really it's the RVP that's making the final hiring. We decided on 6 candidates, because that's based on our 3-year turnover. So it was a fairly small group that we were able to track through. It had to be self-directed, because remember, development plans are associate-driven. And we used experiential learning projects through this. And mentorship was going to accelerate the program. We gave them a 9-box. So as we looked at applicants, every district manager and RVP had a 9-box to go through. And this is kind of what it looked like from start to finish. We have Roz. Yes, that is an actual store manager in our store 1321, and she wanted to be a DM. So we had an application that she filled out. We had them present a video presentation of why they felt they would make a good district manager. All of this ties back into the competencies we were looking for. We know that our district managers are asked to present material. So we need to know where they are in their presentation skills. We did the committee review of the 9-box. The district manager hosted IDP discussions with her about where she was for her dream, her strengths, her plan. We provided experiential learnings. Basically, it was a list of projects that she could select from. She had a mentor through it, and with quarterly reviews. We had 28 people submit applications into this program. 20 of them completed that full dossier. We did make the dossier pretty hefty, mostly so if you weren't ready, you kind of self-selected out, because we knew that a DM had a lot of responsibilities. But 20 of the 28 completed the full package. We selected 6 candidates to be part of this pilot program to anticipate the 6 over the 3 years. And this is what success looks like. So Tim was promoted to a district manager within that first year. So was Chris. The interesting thing about Tim and Chris is that they were from opposite regions. So Chris was from the north, Tim was from the south, but they were hired into the opposite regions. This is key for us because never before had this really happened, where an RVP of a northern region was suddenly exposed to the talents of someone down south, and vice versa. Roz was recently promoted to be a district manager this year. We had Peter, he's promoted to our largest flagship store in the chain. It's about 50,000 square feet, the size of a Costco. So we kind of call that a mini district, so we call that a win too. Amanda, it was determined that she needed some larger store experience before she became a DM. She's already been promoted to that larger store and is still working towards being a district manager. Matt has been completing experiential projects and is ongoing coaching. So we consider this a pretty big win. 4 of the 6 are already in district manager roles. One's pretty closely right behind. What we learned, though, is this led to more opportunities. This is what led to our cascading goals that we launched last year. The impressions work around IDP milestones were then pulled into our reviews this year. So as an associate is getting their review, the manager doesn't have to remember what happened last year. Those impressions, those badges, are in there to auto-pull in. It led to vision, mission, values work that we're currently working through so that we can align our goals at IDP work to executive needs. And it's linking the career paths and competencies in these paths. So in summary, making personal development a business strategy is not a soft benefit. Training management to host personal development discussions helps both sides of the table. Focusing your programs on self-development and personal accountability, people are owning this. Just like we ask our store managers to own their stores, they're owning their own development as well. This link of personal development to company opportunity has been huge. We've seen folks take on roles in special projects that they may not have even thought of before. And it creates a development path defined by what our company needs in the strategy. So some tips to get started is you need to partner with an executive sponsor. This needs to be driven from the top down as an opportunity. Define the long-term strategic and succession needs that you need in your company. You have to teach your managers how to host these conversations. Because remember, sometimes someone's dream may not be involved with the company, and that's okay. You need to implement an individual growth process and link that growth to the company need. And practice with your own IDP. Leading by example will help you see opportunities that your company can have with this program. And that's what I have for you today. Thank you for coming.